Is Japan about to launch a Bitcoin ETF? And if they are, what does this mean for Japan and the crypto markets as a whole? Well, according to an anonymous source who told Bloomberg, who reported on the story, who I am now quoting, yeah, it's one of those kind of stories, guys. But nevertheless, it is a very interesting story because it's likely going to be true. These kind of rumors don't come out of nowhere, although we don't have any confirmation yet from the Japanese Financial Service Agency. It would be really cool to see that come out, but we don't have it yet. Now, the rumor is that they are indeed looking into launching a Bitcoin ETF for the domestic Japanese market. Now, this is in a big contrast, of course, to what we're seeing in the United States right now. The United States has been quite friendly towards Bitcoin futures, but the Bitcoin ETF has been a real struggle for the US to regulate. Japan has done the opposite, or seems to be in the process of doing the opposite. They have shot down Bitcoin futures attempts, but they may be looking to let a Bitcoin ETF in. Now, previously, the FSA has come out and said that, well, we don't like the idea of the Bitcoin futures. They just stoke speculation, and that's not actually good for the markets. But a Bitcoin ETF might be something a little bit different. This certainly comes at an interesting time considering the ongoing dysfunction of the United States government continuing the shutdown, because right now the CFTC and the SEC, of course, more importantly here, the one who's presiding over the decision for the Bitcoin ETF, running on a bare bones staff, which is highly problematic for the organization when it comes to all the different things that they want to be regulating at the moment. I think the decisions on things like the Bitcoin ETF or the Bitcoin futures that are going to be coming out from Bakkt, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, are going to be delayed a lot. Now, Japan, interesting timing, coming in and saying, we're going to do a Bitcoin ETF. Again, we haven't had that official announcement yet from the FSA, but the United States has not given up on the Bitcoin ETF. The Winklevoss twins said the other day in an AMA that they are doubling down on their efforts to get a Bitcoin ETF launched. And of course, a lot of other players are working on getting a Bitcoin ETF launched as well. Chances are we'll have quite a few come to the market, but the US government has to start working again. Japanese government currently not suffering from such a problem. And Japan is a super important market when it comes to Bitcoin. It always has been, and it probably always will be. Now, we've seen some negative stories coming out of Japan recently. We've seen DMM and GMO both shut down their Bitcoin mining operations. They couldn't find it to be profitable running those operations in Japan. But overall, Bitcoin in Japan remains incredibly popular. There is very proactive and forward-thinking legislation for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies in Japan, which is totally awesome. As well as that, we had a recent day where yen surpassed the US dollar in trading volume for Bitcoin. Now that is interesting because Japan, one country that uses the yen. The United States, yes, everyone in the USA uses the US dollar to invest in Bitcoin. The USA is twice the size by population of Japan, so just let that number sink in for a second. But more importantly, the United States is not the only country that uses the US dollar to invest in Bitcoin. Although I would imagine that Japan's probably the only country really using the yen to invest in Bitcoin. So you can see how powerful the markets are and how much demand there is for Bitcoin inside of Japan versus everywhere else combined, basically, which is quite telling. Obviously, that's not accounting for the euros and things like that, but the US dollar markets have been the biggest markets for a long time. Not to say that the yen's going to maintain that momentary lead that it did have over the dollar, but nevertheless, it really does show that there is a huge appetite in Japan for Bitcoin. And something very important to keep in mind here too, the Tokyo Stock Exchange is the third biggest exchange in the world, after the New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ. That is something really important to keep in mind here as well, to see the world's third biggest stock exchange potentially bringing out a Bitcoin ETF. That could be massive on a totally different scale considering how Bitcoin crazy Japan is. And the Bitcoin ETF is just one giant thing which could happen. We do have confirmations that other very, very exciting things are actually happening in Japan right now, which is the double down overall on how important the Japanese market is for the entire crypto economy. Now, we do have two stablecoins which are either recently launched or in the process of being brought out. The first one is being launched by Mizuho Financial Group. They announced this in December. They're going to be issuing their own digital currency coming up in March. They are one of the largest financial institutions in the world, with 60,000 employees and $1.9 trillion in assets under management. So kind of a big deal. They are launching this as part of the J-Coin project, looking to bring digital currencies to the masses. They also work with Japan Post Bank and 60 other regional banks across Japan. And they're not the only ones looking to bring out a crypto yen stablecoin. We also have MUFG, who is the largest financial company in Japan and the world's 5th largest bank. Holy cow, they have 2.7 trillion in assets under management. Now, the MUFG coin is again a Japanese yen stablecoin. They're taking some very tentative steps in terms of launching that. They did announce that May last year. They brought it out as some very, very, very limited test runs with some employees at a couple of shops in September. So we don't have any big forward movement on that yet, but we might very well in the near future see some very explosive movements from these giant financial institutions in terms of issuing a crypto yen. The Japanese Financial Services Agency also reporting that currently they have 190 companies who want to be registered as cryptocurrency operators. That is a giant number. Holy cow. Now, we don't know who all of those 190 are, but we have had announcements from a few of them saying that, yes, they're in the process of working with the Japanese FSA to get that authority. But we do know that a couple of the big ones are very big indeed. One of them is Line Corp. Now, Line is launching a cryptocurrency token called Link. This will be in-app currency for one of the world's biggest messaging and video apps. They have hundreds of millions of existing users, super big in East Asia. In fact, it is the biggest messaging app in Japan. So that is a big deal without a doubt to see them launching a cryptocurrency and to be going, of course, through all the legal routes that they need to make it as compliant as possible. And I know compliance is a dirty word, but better to be playing by the rules and to be mass accepted than to try and work outside of the rules. And Japan has definitely had a lot of people wanting to play by the rules. So very interesting to see what Line's Link is going to look like when it gets active, because just think, hundreds of millions of people potentially using the Link token as an in-app currency. That is very, very big indeed. When Link gets launched, if it does get adopted by people on the platform, it could easily become one of the biggest cryptocurrencies in a very short period of time. Add into all of that fun that the Japanese Financial Services Agency has recently released a new draft report outlining new cryptocurrency regulations covering everything from hacking, deemed dealers, privacy coins, margin trading, etc., etc. They are very serious about properly regulating the industry and in having an open, transparent, and clarified set of rules for people to play by. And it has been paying off very well for Japan because we see a lot of businesses wanting to open up shop in Japan, a lot of businesses wanting to access the Japanese market, which is of course crazy for crypto. So to see the Bitcoin ETF coming to Japan, potentially, again, have to remember it's an anonymous source telling Bloomberg who I'm reporting on, so who knows? I'll believe when the FSA actually comes out and announces it officially, but it would definitely fit in line with everything else that we see happening in Japan. It could be a very big deal for crypto if we see a Bitcoin ETF launching on the Tokyo Stock Exchange. But of course, those are just my 2 Satoshis on the topic of a Japanese Bitcoin ETF. You will let me know what you think about it down below in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching today's video. You guys are super awesome. If you enjoyed this video, leave a thumbs up on it. If you're new around here, subscribe to the channel. If you want to know when I put out a new video, hit that notification bell down below. Long live the blockchain, and peace out till next time.